Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Hung, and today we're gonna talk about Powerhouse Amazon Management, the unsexy side of things on Amazon. So in today's agenda, we have the first part where we will cover extensibility and naming conventions. And in the second part, which is my part, we'll cover how to do things in the catalog and defensive strategy to protect yourself. Now with Talal.
Hi, everyone. One of the big words and one of the big things that I want to get across today is the word extensibility and what that means. And a lot of times everyone is focused on PPC and focused on listing optimization and all the fun stuff, but we really want to talk about some of the nitty-gritty things that are often overlooked and really end up being something that people tend to regret down the line and wish like, oh, I wish I did something like this, 5 years ago, it would have been much easier. And so discussing through what extensible design is going to really help through all of that. And as entrepreneurs, I'm sure all of us are always on like, you get your product and you want to get it done and you just go, 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 and everything's really fast. So I want everyone just to take a deep breath. And like I like to say, just say no to go, 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 despite what everyone says. Just take some time to really think about and plan what you're going to do, not just today, but what you're going to do down the line. And what I mean from that is, if you sit there and you start to build out a plan and then you notice that down the line, like you have a new product or you have a new pack size or you have a new flavor and then you have some conflict, you're gonna what I consider, paint yourself into a corner. And so really sit there and like plan out your 5-year plan first and like your 10-year plan first. Like, what do you want your company really to look like? And then when you start doing that, you'll start to really think about how you can start naming your SKUs, which is what we're going to really be focusing on. And then the different types of naming conventions internally and externally to help you really focus on sustainable and extensible growth. And so let's talk about that word a little bit, extensibility. Not all of us are software developers, but in software design especially, extensible design is the framework in which you don't just plan for today, but you're really trying to plan, again, for the future components, future features, without then breaking what you currently have. And so the three things that you should think through is like, is what you're doing right now, the names of what you're doing, is everything compatible? Is it functional? And is it seamless? And so that means taking into account everything now and in the future, something that's just so easily and understandable and something that works for you. That's the really important part here that I want to stress in a second. And then something that's seamless, meaning you can add and drop things without really affecting the overall flow of your operations. And so going back to that work for you and your business, that really important part about that is like, it's not a one size fits all. So you have to really think about how things work internally and how you communicate with your different stakeholders in order for the extensibility to really work. Or if you're a software designer, of your users and your internal database and what you're using on your front end and your back end stack. But right now we're going to be focusing purely on SKUs today, and SKUs, especially SKUs when it comes to Amazon. I'm approaching this thinking that everyone knows and assuming that everyone on here is of a caliber who understands the difference between a SKU and a barcode and how they overlap and what an internal SKU, master SKU, and an Amazon SKU is versus everything else. So if there aren't, please email me at the end of this if there's any confusion about that. But I'm going to come with the assumption that we know what SKUs are. And when we're talking about SKUs here, especially, I want to tailor this to the Amazon and to your internal SKU naming convention so that you're able to be compatible between Amazon, between Shopify and Walmart and everything, as well as to be able to use those and what's called shadow SKUs when you're using multiple SKUs for different channels. And so that you're able to all come up to a single master SKU, which is the SKU, the God SKU, the SKU that owns all SKUs. And so in this case, just remember the three main features: compatibility, functionality, and that it's seamless. So we're going to do this whole entire thing through a case study of someone we invented named Joe Beans Java. So Joe Beans Java is a 3rd-generation coffee roaster, and it's been around since 1909, and it went from a small corner store, and now it's selling nationally. And our friend Joe wants to now sell on his website and Amazon and wants to sell it direct to consumer, and then also released a new sparkling drink under the brand called Beans Bubbles. So going back to our three things, the compatibility. the first thing is just always remember, the great grandfather of Joe Beans, Mr. Joe Beans II, had an idea that down the line that they were going to come with more products, and we're going to create a ready to drink, even though ready to drink coffee probably didn't really exist at that time. But it doesn't matter, because if you think extensively, you're able to drop in and out without, you can plan for the future even before the future is a thing. And so in this case, it's always good to know about all of the different flavors that are planned, the pack sizes, the weights, the sizes, any different brand names. And then you can always add prefixes and suffixes, and that helps you add additional, I want to say, channels or additional, you could be extensible with prefixes and suffixes. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So in the functionality side, you just have to know immediately from looking at your SKU what it is within 3 seconds. And a lot of you are like, but most of my SKUs are numbers, or I use a UPC for my SKU. Well, if I gave you a list of 400 of your UPCs, do you know exactly what each one of those are? If the answer is no, then you named your internal SKUs incorrectly. And then there's another one that I like to call the external observer rule. You have to feel pity for us consultants and agency owners, because when we come in and we have no idea what your SKUs are, and then you ask for analytics, it's kind of a pain. And so if you did this all correctly, we would be able to do our job a lot faster as well. And then lastly, the seamlessness, right? Things should be standardized and should follow conventions. That means it has a standard nomenclature or syntax or taxonomy. And then once you hold on to it, keep it exactly the same for as long as possible, including where you put abbreviations and hyphens and underscores and capital letters. And I'm going to show you all of this. This is all going to come together here in a second. Okay, so our boy Joe Beans has 3 product lines. They have roasted beans, single serve pods like Keurig pods, and the ready to drink, and different sizes, roasts, flavors, brands. And so you can kind of get an idea. Here's what they have. And this is how it's all going to resolve into something that's really easy and readable and compatible. So for Joe Beans, and again, this is not a hard and fast rule. This is just one single type of naming convention that can work really easily, is if you think about putting the brand first and either one of the variant types, so flavor or roast in this case, or if you have scents, maybe scents can go next. And then you use an underscore and then the unit type or the weight type. And then in underscore, remember there's a difference between size and pack size. So you have to split those out as well. And then lastly, kind of the channel that it's going to. So for the beans, something that would work would be like JJ for Joe's Java, DR dark roast, LR light roast. Then we can see the 8 ounce. And if you're a little bit more advanced, roasted beans / 16 ounce. And then it's an FBA SKU, it's an FBM SKU. So you know exactly what they are. On the pods, same thing. We just added pod to it because there's a unit type that's a little different. And in the ready to drink stuff, we have the ounce size and then C-12 ounce versus 12 ounce. This is like if you wanted to know a can, or in this case, if they're like, we're only ever going to do cans, but that's not extensible. So you have to realize at some point, maybe you want to do glass, or maybe at some point you want to do plastic, PET. So that's where so I'm trying to show you, like, this is like a basic one, that first one, that 8 ounce. The second one would be a little bit more advanced because you're starting to get more specific. And then with your SKUs, some final tips. Again, stick to format codes. So if you go with OZ or fluid ounce or GR, keep saying GR or OZ or FLOZ. Don't switch between OZ and O or OZ and OUNCE. Keep things that are, when you're coding stuff, and by coding, I mean translating something into kind of like an abbreviated code. Just make sure that you're using something that is logical, right? Don't come up with something crazy for can, like aluminum or something like that, unless you want to say aluminum can versus tin can, even though people don't do tin. Anyway, again, all of this can be, you can work with this with someone who understands extensible design, or you can sit there and work on it internally. Another big thing just to remember, please, 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 and I see this so much, don't use special characters in your SKUs. It breaks databases, it breaks Excel, it's super annoying. Never use a $sign. Don't use hash mark. Don't use ampersand or star. Definitely don't use percent, because that's a wildcard character. All of these things you don't want to be doing. Another thing, if you needed to do $1, use a D for $1, PCT for percent. You can use underscores, dashes, and periods. Those are all acceptable. And then just really quickly on Amazon, other things, other places that you could do and use naming conventions on Amazon. So we talked about SKUs in depth, but you can also do it in advertising. You could do it in your inbound freight. And I'm going to show you a really neat trick that's going to save you a lot of heartache there. And also if you're doing any multi-channel fulfillment or doing some of those fulfillments on Amazon where you're like sending something from your FBA that isn't an FBA item. So when thinking through Amazon ads, again, put everything on paper. There's all of these different ad types. There's all these different targeting types. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it's a big enough list. There's different creatives if you're using sponsored display. There's different or sponsor brand video. You have different product names and pack sizes. So just remember all of these little things could be entered into how you name your Amazon ad campaigns. That helps you really identify immediately the intent of that campaign. And here's just some examples that I have. I'm not going to dive as much as into the SKUs, but if you can take a second to try to match the campaign to the intent. So there's 4 different campaign names here on the left side. On the right side, that's the intent of what is in each one of those campaigns. And yep, and we'll just go through them so you could see which one's which. Cool. And then lastly, or not lastly, but second to lastly, your inbound freight. So how many of you open up your inbound freight page on Amazon and see something that looks like the left, all of the default freight names of when it was sent, and that's it. And that probably drives you crazy, especially if you're a high volume seller and you're sending stuff out weekly or every other week and you don't know what's in what. That should never be the left side of that left side should never be your inbound freight page. Your inbound freight page on Amazon should look something like this. Put in the origin. Lots of you have different warehouses, different 3PLs, the destination FC, so you know exactly where it's going, and then put in the quantity, and you can abbreviate it a little bit more than what your master SKU is, especially if you have really long master SKUs, but abbreviate it a little bit, and then put in the content, and then dash the quantity of each one of those contents, and separate each one of these segments by an underscore. So what we see here is if we're going from the Joe Java main warehouse and it's going to the FC CLT2, and we're sending 240 pods and 230 20-ounce light roasts, and we're shipping it on or around May 15th, 2021, if that bottom thing right there is what you should name your shipping plan in Amazon when it gives you the chance to name it. And remember, you can rename it all the way up until you ship it. And so, or until you accept the charges. So make sure that you rename it if you forget to do this. And one really big thing is that last segment that you see where the estimated ship date, where May 15th, 2021, please don't do 05152021 because that's not sortable. Always do year, month, day. That's the only way it's going to be fully sortable. So then you can, if you put everything into Excel, you'd be able to sort it correctly. And then just very lastly, if you're doing any MCF orders on Amazon or using FBA to do a fulfillment order, let's say someone complained about something and you want to send them a replacement, append or prefix an MG to it. And MG stands for make good, or you could put like RPL, replacement, dash, and then the thing. So you know exactly which order ID you were replacing. Are you sending something to an influencer, to a friend and family or something like that? Remember just to name your order ID, you know, INF for influencer. You could do like FF for friends and family if you're sending them a free product or something, and then where it's going to and the date. And that just helps you. So if you know, if you've ever sent an MCF order on Amazon, it starts with S01, blah, 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 blah. Then you have to sit there and look at the zip code and who you sent it to try to figure it all out. This way, it just helps you really, really quickly understand how many influencer products do you comp, or how many make goods do you comp in a month? And that really helps you with your numbers. And then if you're fulfilling Shopify, just prefix everything with an SFY, or, you know, if it's Magento, whatever, just so you know where everything is going. That's it. I know you didn't think you'd be spending that much time talking about SKUs. And so we're going to give it to Vanessa for other unsexy stuff on Amazon, but it's still very useful.
Yes. Before that, Talal, I have a question for you. So I'm a seller and I already made my SKUs. I didn't think about all of the things that you're talking about. So what's the best recommendation for people that are listening to us that has a huge catalog and all SKUs all over the place? So what's the best way to transition into a convention?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's unfortunately not an easy answer. So I've had to translate tens of thousands of SKUs. The biggest thing, first of all, is to kind of take that first step and take a deep breath, and then kind of map out what all of the different SKUs that you currently have are, and in what brands, and in what pack sizes, and in what like different colors, and then start to say, okay, we have a beige, a brown, a red, and an assorted. We want to use BGE for beige. We want to use assorted for ASST, green GRN, et cetera, et cetera. So start to take out your whole entire catalog and start to take the little segments of all the different things. And that way you can start to then put them together into like a longer string. The harder part then is then renaming everything on Amazon, which means you have to open up all these new SKUs on Amazon. The question becomes, is it worth it? And that's where you have to kind of sit down and talk about, maybe today it's not worth it, but we know for a fact in 2 years it's going to be. And so at that point, it might be worth one of those like reconciliation projects that take a lot of time. But in the long run, if you're trying to build a sustainable business, that's the right thing to do. The other thing is sometimes you have multiple different SKUs that all resolve to one what's called a master SKU. So you have to first define what the master SKU is. And then from the master SKU, so that would be like internally what you would call, like when we went back to like, the like roasted, what was it, light roast, 8-ounce, whatever, without saying merchant fulfilled, without saying FBA, that would be your master SKU. And then from there, you can derive all of the other channels from it. So it takes a lot of time, but if you take it in small steps and really think about mapping out the process, that's the best way to start at it.
Yeah, and I also think that is a great practice just because we want to start using Amazon as another channel. So if we are start selling on Walmart, on Shopify, Etsy, having that is extremely important. It will make the transition easier. One thing that we need to bear in mind is that the SKUs on Amazon are limited to 40 characters. So we need to be very clever there and try not to write everything. So if you have colors, as Talal mentioned, it's not like we're gonna write burgundy. You just find a keyword or 2 letters just to map that color. It's important because it's limited space.
Definitely. And then like for something like burgundy, if you choose BR, remember BR could also be brown. Yeah. So you have to sit there and think about like what the 2 letters are going to be. Don't get yourself into what is it? Is it Mississippi or Arkansas? One of the states that has like, there's like 4 states that can all be the same thing. I think it's like Alabama, Arkansas. Like, so you sit there and really think through all of the different colors and the codes, and then you have to stick with those for the rest of your life.
Yes. So once we start doing that in our catalog, which is a very good practice for management, Java is already set for it, and it's already it's ready for Amazon. So there is a problem. 6 out of 10 sellers don't know what the category listing report, aka flat files, feed files, templates, they don't know what are they or how to use it. And Joe is one of them. So even though Joe had the excellent advice of Talal and they map all their SKUs and they have everything perfect, they come with a problem. So we're gonna start with a case study. So him and his team created all the asins through Seller Central, or all the SKUs in Seller Central. And once they start selling, they got very, very successful, and their best-selling asins got flagged for pesticide and adult products. After that happened, the asin or the detail page got removed. The variations were all split apart, which it prevent them from indexing, so they fell from the category and they're not indexing anymore, which means that they will start losing ranking. So now Joe has several account health inventory problems because they didn't know how to manage the catalog properly. And this is something that we're going to talk about. It's the Amazon catalog secret weapon, the weapon X. That's the name that I put it to it. It's not really something that you can say to Amazon, this doesn't exist. But yeah, that's the category listing report. So what is that? It's an efficient catalog management tool that has all the information in a seller account of their catalog. It's only available by request, meaning that we as a seller need to request that from seller support to get access to it. And normally they give us access for a short time period. So normally it's like 7, 14, or 30 days. You need to ask that when you open the case. And in there, it's a template in an Excel database where we can see all the information. It helps for catalog troubleshooting. And it shows all the information of the categories that you have in your catalog. So going to the example that Joe has, Joe is in the category of food, right? And he's selling roasted beans, which is a dry product, and they're also selling like canned drinks, which is a liquid. So those are kind of different subcategories from the same category, and each of them have different attributes because it's not the same. But in the category listing report, we will be able to see all the features that they have. When Joe and his team created the ASINs on Seller Central, they just input the basic information that we all know. So the title, they put the bullet points, the description, everything was perfect, but they overlook what all the potential that Amazon give you to fill information of your listing. And filling information means having a robust offer and putting keywords in the backend and explaining really, really well to the algorithm what your product really is. So we're gonna go over into a category listing report, how Joe's category listing report looks like. So this is his category listing report. We see all the naming SKUs that are beautiful, the UPCs, they put the title. So they put the bullet points, that's perfect, the unit count, but this is when the problems start coming up. So is the item heat sensitive? So they overlook these kind of attributes because they really don't think that that's something that pertains to their product. So they're like, whatever, we don't need to input this. It can create a problem. Then we have if the product is expireable or not. And something that I want to mention here about the category listing report and all the attributes that you can input into one listing, when we as sellers overlook these attributes and say like, okay, this is not related to my product, or this is not relevant, or I don't know what to put there, and leave that space blank, this is a potential space for hijackers and competitors, or even the Amazon internal team to come here and override this. So for example, in this case, they didn't put if the item is heat sensitive or not. But a hijacker came because they were selling very well and they want to, close their listing and take away the competition. They download this report and input here that is yes. So when they did that, they messed everything in Joe's catalog because they didn't have the information for heat sensitive. And this is related to meltables. We all know that in the period during the summer, we cannot have meltable products in the FBA warehouses. So if you don't have that information in your listing, when summer period come, you can get suspended. Your listings can get suspended because of that, because you didn't input the information. So if the product is expirable, it's the same. All the things that you see here in blank are missing opportunities or missed opportunities for them to input information in the listing, telling Amazon how specific is their product. And it's an opportunity for other people, hijackers and competitors, to come and hijack the listing. So here we see the variations, which is very important, and see all this. So they didn't input anything. Their listing was available, they were selling great, but all these things are features and attributes, keyword space for indexing that they're not using. So it's not only a defensive strategy to fill the information here, but it also helps you with sales and indexing. I want to go to the main section. One thing that I would like to say about the category listing report is if you see here how I'm going, it's because the category listing report in this case is giving me all the attributes for the whole category. So we have a main category and we have the subcategories, right? So the subcategories are nodes. The main category listing report has the attributes for the whole category, meaning the whole food, like possibilities. So for example, here, it gave me an option of chocolate type. this is not really something that it relates to what Joe is selling, but potentially we can input information there, not because it's going to show into the listing, but because we want to protect those spaces from hijackers. So it's the same here in the fulfillment part. This is one that is very delicate. When we leave information blank in the package lengths, the quantities, and the height, that can create a problem with Amazon per se, like with FBA. If we don't have this information, Amazon will measure your items and they will put whatever measure they think your product is. So having this information and a way to back up everything that you have, it's important if you ever come with a problem in the inventory side. So to talk a little bit about the problem that they have, Joe had with the pesticides, there is a tab or a section, the compliance section here in the category listing report, where you can see pesticides marking, and you need to, well, Joe needed to input information here, they didn't, and for that reason, they used some keyword that was not allowed and they were shut down. So besides like not having pesticide, antimicrobial, like kind of keywords, you should also fill this information in, because now it's kind of required that the system is triggering all ASINs that don't have it. Other side of this compliance tab, we also have the dangerous goods. So I seen that this side, the dangerous good and the batteries, are one of the easiest to hijack. So in this case, this is the main one that the system will ask you to fill when you upload a template every time. If not, it will come with an error. But also we have all these family or all these attributes around batteries. And I've seen sometimes even when sellers fill this information as no, and leave everything else in blank, they can come with a problem in the future if a hijacker really wants to shut you down. So the other part is that this category listing report, as I mentioned, it's in the food category, and it does not have the column or the attribute as an adult product. So Joe was wondering how the hell my listings got flagged for adult products. So
can you explain what flagged for adult products means?
Yes. So there is an attribute on Amazon that's called adult products. So I have it here in another template that I downloaded for another catalog, for another category. And this is the information that you need to input. Amazon asks you if your product is an adult product. So in the food section, in the food category, we don't have that attribute, but I can add it to my flat file. So that's where the category listing report and all templates become very, very handy, because we can actually customize this however we want it, and we can input information as needed. So in this case, I will add a column, and I will input here, is an adult product or not. So now I'll answer that this is no, and we will input this, or we will upload this into Amazon. Most of the time, these tricks work for columns like this that are very, very sensitive. And as I mentioned, I did it right now. Other people and other hijackers or competitors can do this to your listings. So the beautiful thing about templates and flat files is that they are fully customizable. So I want to talk a little bit about the defensive strategies. As I mentioned, we need to start filling information in our database. So use the category listing report as the database of your catalog, because sometimes you can see that even Amazon changes stuff on your listings, like changing sizes because some customer like complain or something like that. So having these reports download, and I recommend people to download it every month or every 45 days to keep track of what's happening in your catalog. And in that way, you can have a backup. So if you ever get hijacked, you can upload a previous category listing report and refresh everything on your end. The other part is optimize. Using this as a defensive strategy to optimize your listing as much as possible. So use all the attributes that you can that you have in a category listing report and upload them. Not everything, and this is important, not everything will be shown in the detail page, but the information is in the backend, and that's important because that information, it's if you have run registry, and most of the time when we own the asins, that gets locked. So it's harder for other people or other teams within Amazon to change the information there. And lastly, it serves to manage and troubleshoot problems. So sometimes it can happen that if you ever get hijacked, suspended, or detail page removed, and you upload the category listing report again, the one that you had it previously that worked, the system will give you a report on what is the problem. So instead of calling seller support and waiting for them to discover what's really the issue, you can upload this report and wait for you can download this file and then wait for the report to tell you what's really the problem there. And fixing it's easier when you have the instructions, because that's the other part that the category listing report can give you, is that sometimes here you can see the processing data and they tell you what is the problem, and some of the time, most of the time, they will tell you how to fix it. So what's the discrepancy that they have? So now that Joe knows how to use their flat file, how to use the category listing report, how to protect their brand or his brands to prevent any hijackers or things that could happen on Amazon, he's set for success. So using all these tips that we gave you will give you an advantage to manage, not only to manage the catalog, but to overcome all the issues that you can have in the future.
Hey, Vanessa, I have a question.
Yes.
What do I do in seller? Do I just go to seller support if I need to ask how to ask for a thing?
Of course, I'm sorry, I forgot that. So how to download the category listing report. I create this SOP and I will attach it to the presentation so you can download it and see it yourself. But the first thing that we need to do is go to the help site, get support, then selling on Amazon. And I did a small template here. Hello, Amazon team, please allow us to download the category listing report. Thank you. You submit that. If you are the kind of person that like to call, you call. If not, just send the email. And within 20 minutes, you will get a reply back saying you're allowed to download the category listing report. After you have that, then you go to the inventory site and your inventory reports here before asking the seller support the permission to download the category listing report. If you go here, you wouldn't be able to see that your category listing report was listed. So now I see it and I can download it. Cool thing here is that if you're a seller that has products from different categories and you really want to narrow down the information or the amount of columns that this file has, you can select the category here. So if you're selling toys and food, you can select only the toys and only the food and download two different category listing reports. And you can see all the attributes there. In other case, if you download everything together, you will have all the columns from all categories for all the asins. So that can be very overwhelming sometimes. After you request the download, you just need to wait. It really depends how big is your catalog. It will take longer, and then you download it. Something that I think is a cool trick to have, and if you are a seller that is getting hijacked all the time, or things happen to your listing frequently, is uploading the category listing report that is correct, full of information, like often. I don't know what's the best practice. It really depends on your account, but I'll say like maybe once a month or twice a month, you upload out, like, to refresh and push your contribution over anyone else.
Interesting.
Yes.
Cool. We didn't really introduce ourselves at the beginning, did we?
No. Who's Talal?
I'm Talal. work for a brand together, and we are a brand collaborative agency.
Well, my name is Vanessa Hung. We are online seller solutions. We are a problem-solving agency. We can take care of all the issues in Seller Central. And here in the slides, you have our emails in case you want to contact us to answer your questions, to ask questions about this presentation or anything else.